Okay, so we will study the history. The history of conservation can be traced back to John Evelyn Works Silva, which was presented as a paper to the Royal Society in 1662. So the before going to the international efforts, we'll study that how the international efforts started. Though it was for uh, war purpose, but they started. The history is uh, started in 1662 when John Elwyn he wrote a paper. He named it as Silva and presented it to the Royal Society in 1662. And then after 2 years, this paper was published as a book, and it was one of the influential, most highly influential text on forestry ever published. So he published this book for the conservation of forestry and mainly for the propagation of timber. Timber resources in England were becoming dangerously depleted at that time, and Elwyn advocated the importance of conserving the forest by managing the rate of depletion and ensuring the cut down of trees get replenished. So the history of biodiversity conservation, the effort started in 1662 when a forester, John Elwyn, he wrote a paper and then it was published as a book, and it was on the propagation of timber or the conservation of timber resources. Later on, during the 18th century, scientific forestry methods were developed for conservation. These methods were first applied rigorously in British India from the earlier 19th century. In our region, in early 19th century, these scientific conservation methods, they were adopted in over here. And the conservation of timber was for the type of timber which is called teak. Teak is the hard timber used for shipbuilding. And ships at that time, ships were used for navy purposes, and it was concerned over teak, hard timber used for shipbuilding. Teak was important for Royal Navy. So concern over teak depletion were raised as early as 1799 in 18th century and 1805 when Navy was undergoing massive expansion during wars. This pressure led to the first formal Conservation Act, which prohibited the felling of small teak trees. The first forestry officer was appointed in 1806 to regulate and preserve the trees necessary for shipbuilding. So the first act, or the first forest officer which was appointed for the preservation of teak or the hard timber which was used for shipbuilding. Later on, International Union for Protection of Nature (IUPN) was established in 1948 in France. At the time of its founding, IUPN was only international organization focusing on the entire spectrum of nature conservation. So IUPN, it was established in 1948. In 1956, its name was changed to International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, IUCN, as we know now. So it was first established in 1948 and its name was changed in 1956 to IUCN. IUCN was one of the few environmental organizations formally involved in the preparation of United Nations Conference on Human Environment, Stockholm 19 1972. So this is, as I told you, a dry topic, a history topic. So just remember the history, that how biodiversity conservation started in 1662. Then first forest officer was appointed. The act was implemented, and then for the conservation of teak, a hard timber which is used for building ships for the Royal Navy. And in 1948, IUPN was established in France, which was whose name was changed to IUCN in 1956. Conservation of biological diversity and sustainable use of its component came into limelight in 1972. The United Nations Environment Program (UNEP) was created as a result of this conference. In 1973, United Nations Environmental Program identified conservation of biodiversity as priority area. Hence, there was need to get the legal mandate for conservation of world resources. United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, also known as Earth Summit, was a major United Nations conference held in Rio in 1992. So we will study the Earth Summit and its we will study in detail about the Earth Summit in next slides. The issue addressed in Earth Summit UNCED included systematic scrutiny of patterns of toxic component production, alternative sources of energy to replace the use of fossil fuels, new reliance on public transportation system in order to reduce vehicle emission, congestion in the cities, and health problem caused by polluted air and smoke, and the growing usage and limited supply of water. So we will discuss all these points one by one. So during Earth Summit, important legally binding agreements were opened for signature. In these agreements, the first agreement was Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. We'll study this. So CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, 195 ratified parties signed this convention. What was the objective of CBD? You should know the objective of CBD. So first of all, CBD was one of the agreement. CBD is one of the agreement which was presented in Earth Summit, which was held in 1992. And the objective was Convention on Biological Diversity. The objective of CBD was conservation of biological diversity. The first objective was conservation of biological diversity, sustainable use of components of biological diversity. Sustainable use of components of biological diversity, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. Just remember these three objectives. Then another agreement was Framework Convention on Climate Change. 197 ratified parties, they signed this convention. Framework Convention on Climate Change aims to control the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous and anthropogenic interference with the climate system. So just remember this Convention on Biological Diversity It was about biological diversity and its conservation and sustainable use of the biological diversity. While UNFCCC Framework Convention on Climate Change, it was about greenhouse gas concentration to control the greenhouse gases in the environment or in the atmosphere, and at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference. The next agreement was United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, as it is from the its title. 197 ratified parties signed this convention. United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification aims to improve the living condition of people in dry lands, to maintain and restore land and soil productivity, and to mitigate the efforts of drought. So it is UNCCD is mainly about the mitigation of drought and dry lands. Now IUPN, which is now known as International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, it was established in 1948 with the name IUPN, and UNESCO was the driving force for the creation of IUCN. IUCN is an international organization working in the field of nature conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. Okay, international organization which work for the conservation of natural resources and its sustainable use. It is involved in data gathering and analysis, research, field projects, advocacy, and education for the conservation of natural resources. And its mission is to influence, encourage, and assist societies through the world to conserve the nature and to ensure that any use of natural resources is equitable and ecologically sustainable. So sustainable use of the natural resources is the objective of IUCN through influencing, through encouraging, assisting societies. Now the history, as we already know, that it was established in 1948 as IUPN. At the time of its foundation, IUPN was only international organization focusing on the entire spectrum of nature conservation. And its name changed to IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, for conservation of nature and natural resources. Its name changed in 1956. This was also called as World Conservation Union, WCU, World Conservation Union, from 1992 to 2008. IUCN was one of the few environmental organizations formally involved in the preparation of United Nations Conference on Human Health, which was held in 1972. Its objective was to promote nature conservation and the ecologically sustainable use of natural resources. Through its member organization, the IUCN participate in environmental scientific research, promotes and helps in implementation of national conservation legislation, policies and practices, and operate thousands of field projects worldwide. The thematic areas for the IUCN, these are the 15 thematic areas in which IUCN is working. These include business and biodiversity. They are also working on climate change. IUCN, one of the thematic area is ecosystem management. They are also working on environmental laws and governance and rights, science and economics, global policies, protected areas, gender, nature-based solution, forest, marine and polar, world heritage, water and species. So these are the thematic areas in which IUCN is working worldwide. IUCN I. IUCN is a democratic union that brings together world's most influential organization and top experts in a combined effort to conserve nature and accelerate the transition of sustainable development. It harnesses the experience, resources, and reach of it more than 1,300 member organization, and the input is more than 15,000 expert. All the IUCN work is guided by global program, which is adopted by member organization every 4 years at IUCN World Conservation Congress. So this is a chart that how it works. It has 1,400 member organization with more than 15,000 experts in different commissions. They collaborate with each other and direct benefits back to the members countries, member organization. The member organization, the policies amplification direct from the members through IUCN World Conservation Congress, and it gives direct benefit to the people and nature through influencing and through different policies and actions. Now there is a red list for biodiversity. IUCN red list of threatened species is the world's most comprehensive inventory for the global conservation of status of plants and animal species. So we already know about the threatened species, different kind of extension, endangered species, threatened species. So the red list of threatened species, it is IUCN list which uses a set of quantitative criteria to evaluate the extinction risk of thousands of species around the world. These criteria are relevant to most species and all regions of the world. IUCN Red List is an authoritative indicator of the health of world biodiversity. We'll study in detail. This is a powerful tool to inform and catalyze action of biodiversity conservation and policy change. Okay. Critical to protecting the natural resources we need to survive. Provide information about range and population size, habitat and ecology. User trade threats provides information about conservation actions that will help inform necessary conservation decision. So what about the red list? IUCN red list is for the threatened species, which provide information about different species of plants and animals around the globe. This list is a powerful tool to inform the societies, the governmental organization, the policy makers about different threatened species, which are highly threatened or which are endangered species, to inform and then catalyze the action of for the biodiversity conservation of the species conservation about the and the policy change for the threatened species in the red list. This red list, it is critical for the protection of natural resources, which we need for our survival, which humans need for their survival. It not only provide information about the threatened species, but also a range of information about range, their population size, about different habitats, ecology, trade, and threats to the biodiversity or species. And it also provide information for the conservation. For the action, it also provides the action plan for the conservation of these threatened species or these endangered species. How it works, or what are the categories in the IUCN Red List? It has NE, NE mean not evaluated. Then you have data deficient, DD. Then in the list, there is a category called least concern. NT is near threatened, vulnerable, and the rare list about is in the endangered species or threatened species are in the red list. Critically endangered or highly endangered and extant in the wild, and then extant. So these are the categories which are in the red list. Red list index or RLI reveals trends in the overall extension risk of the species and provide as an indicator that is used by government to track their progress in achieving targets that reduce biodiversity loss. The RLI or Red List Index is available for groups in which all species have been assessed at least twice. Currently, index is available for 5 groups: birds, mammals, amphibian, coral, and cycads. So it provides information about these 5 different species around different time period from 1980 about different. This is just an example, so it provides information about the species around the world. The red list data, where it is used for a variety of purposes. It is used in the international agreements to guide the decision makers and as indicator of the status of nature. It is used by governmental agencies to rely on IUCN Red List data to guide the policies such as national park regulation. It is also used by zoos to educate the public about the species status. It is also used by scientists as a primary data source in their analysis and for their publication. It is also used by teachers and students in different college or universities projects, and journalists also use this red list data or the IUCN red list threatened species to inform their articles. WWF. After IUCN, we have another organization which is called Worldwide Fund, which was established in 1961. The WWF is non-governmental organization or NGO. Its mission is to conserve nature and reduce the most presenting threats to the diversity of life on Earth. It is working in the field of wilderness preservation and reduction of human impact on the environment. Okay, so the main objective was conserve nature and reduce most pressing threat to diversity of life on Earth, working in the field of wilderness and reduction of human impact on environment. About its history, the WWF has in 1961 a limited number of organizations around the world, IUCN and Conservation Foundation, were trying to meet conservation need but were desperately short of funds. Okay, so the first call of broad support was the Morgus Manifesto, signed in 1961 by 16 world leading conservationists, including biologists and African wild enthusiast Sir Julian Huxley, IUCN Vice President Sir Peter Scott, and Director General of British Nature Conservation Society E.M. Nicholson. So the world conservationists, they came together in 1961 and established the Worldwide Foundation WWF as an international fundraising organization to work in collaboration with existing conservation groups and bring sustainable financial support to the conservation movement on the worldwide scale. So the WWF, or Worldwide Fund, is basically is an non-governmental organization which give the financial support to the conservation movement on worldwide scale, and it was established in 1961 by 16 conservation experts or conservationists, which include Worldwide Fund from Africa, IUCN Vice President, and BNC, or British National Conservation Director General Nicholson. They founded this WWF in 1961. Now WWF have 5 million supporters worldwide. It is working in more than 100 countries, and it is supporting around 3,000 conservation and environmental projects around the globe. The goals of WWF, first of all, is climate, create a climate resilient, zero carbon world, which is powered by use of renewable energy. It's one of the goal is double the net food availability, to double the food production from the same land, and freeze its footprint. From freezing the footprint, it means that there is minimal effect on the environment, or on the nature by the production of double food or more food from the same land. One is the production of food from the production of more food from the same land with the reduced footprints, with the minimal footprints. Safeguard the ocean, healthy ocean and marine livelihood. Protect the world's most important species in wildlife. Conserve the world's most important forests. And fresh water. Secure the water for the people and nature. Just watch this video, then we will So change the way you think about everything. These are the finances.